My original idea was just to show one more way to paint silk that would be very good for beginners, because it's quite simple technique. But it turned out that my Gutta didn't want to hold the dye at all and leaked terribly. So this video adds another topic, which is how to deal with the flowing resist or Gutta. Let's go through it all in order. Today I'm painting chiffon, which is a matte transparent silk. As you can see, even my frame can be seen through it. If anyone is interested, I talked more about frames for painting silk in this video. Links to all the videos mentioned today I will leave below in the description. In this technique I will start working with the background, which will be of great importance, so it can be made bright, painterly and quite active. I use only 3 colors: my favorite magenta, which I often call crimson, ultramarine and a cool green color called brilliant green. You don't always have to have a bunch of different colors to get a painterly image. Just 3 or 4 paints, and by mixing them in the different proportions you can get a very wide range of shades. I like to mix paints on a usual white plate. I mix a small amount, the dye quickly runs out, and I mix the color again and get a bit different shade. And this makes the image varied in shade and yet cohesive at the same time. Because the silk is translucent, the color comes out a bit washed out. If you have ever painted silk, you may have noticed that the higher the density of the silk, the brighter the colors are. And that's why I try to use dense silks for videos, so you can see the brighter and more colorful image. But today I got my hands on such chiffon, and you can clearly see that the color loses its brightness on such silk. The design, as you can see, is quite random. I use different shapes, lines, spots, dots, and of course I keep in mind the compositional center, around which my drawing is built. And so the first layer is a loose painting, slightly reminiscent of plant motifs. But mostly, of course, it's abstract. In some places I have colors merged, although I don't specifically strive for it. I just let the pattern create itself. The only thing is that I try to make the edges darker, denser, filling gaps of white, so that the composition seems complete and whole. By the way, even if you have never worked with composition, only one darkening to the edges of your scarf or of your shawl or a painting will be enough to complete the composition, to limit it. Of course, I rotate the frame to make it convenient to paint. It's desirable to alternate larger shapes with smaller ones, more round with longer ones. All this makes the composition more interesting, diverse and lively. I like that there's a lot of white background. It adds lightness and airiness to the image, but as I mentioned before, I paint the edges more densely. There are fewer wide gaps on the edges. If this is your first time on my channel, I'm going to talk a bit about my relationship with the resist or Gutta. Usually I make my own resist. A video showing the process of making it will also be at the bottom. But this time I was not in the mood to dissolve my rather thick resist and then tint it. So I took ready-made acrylic Gutta. I thought this graphite color would work well for my project. Ready-made Gutta usually has a good tip for application, but over time it becomes uneven and the quality of the line can suffer. And that's why I screw on a metal tip of the required diameter, in which during non-working hours I always leave special pins, so that the residues of Gutta or resist don't glue the hole. Usually such nozzles come with pins of the appropriate size. To check how well the Gutta flows, I try it on the edge of the silk. I'll hold your attention on the Gutta for now, because I'm sure you have experienced the frustration of leaking resist or Gutta. In this video, I'm not going to give you all the reasons for leaking resist. There is a more complete list of reasons somewhere in the middle of this video. But in today's, I'm going to detail what I encountered right now. You can see that the line came out too thin. I turned the frame upside down. There it is, the frame. And I'm going to trace that line again. And it seems like if I press the tube well, the Gutta comes out well. But you see, it's stuck in this spot. So I remove the metal tip and try to draw without it, so the diameter of the hole will be larger and the Gutta will flow more freely, I hope, but the line will be wider as well. As a rule, a wider line gives a more reliable barrier against dye wetness. But by the way, you can always see in the light where the resist has not penetrated to the full depth, or where there are breaks in the line. And now, without the metal nozzle, I will trace my lines with Gutta again. Slowly, calmly, without skipping, and sometimes it's better to take the time to reapply the resist or Gutta and be sure that it's applied properly. Now I turn the frame over the front side again and continue drawing my pattern without the metal tip, hoping that the wider line will protect against paint leaks. And back to the first topic of this video, which is one more way to paint silk. So we have a rather abstract background already painted in a rather free manner. It's quite active and expressive, although because of the transparency of the silk, it's not very well visible, but nevertheless. Now I'm creating quite simple shapes. They can, in a sense, repeat in size and outline the elements depicted on the background. Or they can be radically different. And here you see Gutta gathers around the tip. It's better to remove it with a paper towel, so that it doesn't interfere and spoil the line. So here are the shapes. It's best to draw them as simple as possible, so that the background and the drawing on it are in contrast. I'm going to flip the frame over again to check if the Gutta line has been successfully applied, and I can see that in some places the line is thinner, in some places it's discontinuous. So now I have to go back to circling the whole pattern again from the underside. I'm not saying that this is always the case with ready-made Gutta. Absolutely not. As a rule, everything works out fine, but still sometimes the same product from the same manufacturer behaves dramatically differently. I don't know if it's a labeling error or expiration date. Maybe there are some other reasons. But poor quality resist or Gutta can be very disappointing and very demotivating. And if anyone knows 100% reliable ready-made Gutta, please post the name of the brand in the comments, and I will make this comment pinned so everyone can read and buy a proven, reliable product. I was asked many times how long to wait for the Gutta to dry. I usually start painting when the resist stops shining and no longer sticks to your finger if you touch it. And now we can color what we have drawn with Gutta. The idea is that the background should be the main, active and interesting one, and the outlines that we drew on top should be very simple and completely flat. As you can see, the idea is quite simple, which is why it will work so well for beginners. Usually, we paint silk in a different way. Usually the background serves as just as background for the main image. As a rule, it's more flat and the pictorial elements for example flowers or butterflies, we try to make active, bright, protruding. And here, in today's case, we overturn that algorithm and completely change the concept. And what do we see in the end? After all my efforts, the Gutta still dripped. This tube was not even going to hold the dye, not even a hint. And it's good that I didn't paint with too much liquid paint. The best thing you can do to remedy this situation is to paint with a semi-dry brush, and you can even dry it on a paper towel, and starting to paint from the center of the mold, gradually moving to the edges. And then, with the very tip of the brush, fill in the white spots. Believe me, this is the only and best way out in this situation. All those leaked areas might be circled either with permanent marker or the same Gutta. I really hope you will never have to face the problem of leaking Gutta. And this video wasn't planned to be about it, but about one more way to paint silk. But it looks like it turned out to be twice as informative and useful. So like, share, subscribe, and please be sure to post the brand of good Gutta. Good luck and see you!